everybody got quiet.
Yeah.
Because, the pictures don't do it justice.
No.
But you watch that amazing sunset. And,
Right.
just a couple weeks ago, I was able to watch the sunrise from the side of Mount Fuji. And again, it just fills you with awe.
Right.
When you see that.
Right, and that was my second thing that I had was the Grand Canyon. I remember I've seen pictures of the Grand Canyon. I listened to the Grand Canyon Suite that Disney put to film and everything. And you can say, well, I've seen the Grand Canyon. Not if you haven't been there. If you haven't been there, then it's a completely different experience than just seeing pictures of it. Even animals are sometimes described as majestic, like an eagle in flight, a lion, which is or obviously the king of beasts, an elephant or a whale, things that are going to inspire awe in you and make you think about that. Real quickly, because I'm sure none of you looked this up, but commercially, as a brand name, Majesty and Majestic is the brand name of a heavy metal band. I know most of you really like that one. A brand of golf clubs, sports apparel. In fact, a lot of Major League Baseball uniforms are made by a company, either Majesty or Majestic, and fireplaces. And then I knew this because my friend used to play drums in a band, and there's a percussion company that's called Majestic. So getting back now to biblical uses, for instance, in Exodus chapter 15 and verse 7, and this is the song of Moses after they've crossed the Red Sea, and Exodus chapter 15 and verse 7, my translation has, in the greatness of your majesty, you threw down those who opposed you. You unleashed your burning anger. It consumed them like stubble. And the Hebrew word is ga'awn, G-A-O-W-N, and it means excellence. It means pomp. And I won't have you turn to all of these, but Eglon in Judges 3, King Saul in 1 Samuel 17, Amaziah, Xerxes in Esther. Esther chapter 7 and verse 3, when Esther goes in, she refers to him as Majesty. And Nebuchadnezzar, in fact, Majesty is found 21 times in the book of Daniel. And of course, Daniel is in the presence of the kings, and that's not all of them. I just wanted to give you the idea that all of these kings in the Bible are also referred to with this expression of majesty. And so the connotation there is then, and kind of going along with what Randy said a minute ago, whatever evokes in us a sense of awe, of a sense of greatness or dignity or authority, or even natural beauty or excellence. And isn't there a set of, and there's some mountains called the Majestics? I see people hiking the Majestics. It seems like I just heard about that. I know some of you can get your phones out and you can tell me in like 2 minutes.
There's the enchantments.
Oh, that's probably what it is. And you're right, it is. I'm sure that's what I was thinking of, is enchantments.
But one of the lakes might be Majestic.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, they have majestic mountains referred to in awe-inspiring peaks like the Himalayas and Denali.
Right. Our own Mount Rainier.
Oh, yeah, it's also Majestic Mountain is part of the Okanagan Range of the North Cascades.
Okay, so I was right about that. Okay. All right, so let's go over to Psalm 139. And let's go ahead and read this. There's 24 verses, so I need somebody to read 12 verses and somebody else to read the next 12 verses. And it'd be kind of interesting to have two different translations, but who wants to read Psalm 139 verses 1 through 12? Okay, go ahead.
O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought far off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue. But behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You have hedged me behind and before, and laid your hands upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning, and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall fall on me, even the night shall be light about me. Indeed, the darkness shall not hide from you, but the night shines as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to you.
Okay, and what translation is that?
New King James.
Okay, I was wondering why it said the hell there. So, okay, who wants to read verses 13 through 24? Okay, go ahead, Tim.
For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearful and wonderful you made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you. I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me. When as yet there was none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake, and I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. O men of blood, depart from me. They speak against you with malicious intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with complete hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. And see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the everlasting way.
Okay, thank you. By the way, somebody that has their phone, I'd like you to look at the Hebrew word for depths in verse 8, or Hades or hell, depending on your translation, and also the same word depths in verse 15. So in verse 8 and verse 15, see if they're the same Hebrew word. So the reason I had you read this is because we need to form and have in our minds an accurate view of God. And the first thing often that we will have to do is remove from our minds any kind of thought or opinion that would limit God or seem to make him small. And listen, that's difficult for us because we're physical, we're finite, and we can only really think about things that we have experience with or can see. And I like the fact that Paul kind of referred to that a little bit, or the impressiveness of that in Ephesians 3:20 and 21, where he talks about the fact that in his praise there, I'll find it here. That's not right. Where's my text? I know what I did. I turned the page of my notes. All right. Oh, I know why it's not making sense. I'm looking at Galatians. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. And so the things of God are beyond what we can think. They are beyond even what we can imagine. So as you look at the first 6 verses here of Psalm 139, what do we learn about the majesty of God from that? Okay. He is everywhere. He's omnipresent. Anything else?
Omniscient.
Okay. And to what extent is he omniscient?
All the way.
That's a good answer. Yeah, the unlimited nature of God's presence, knowledge, and power is here. He searches us. He knows us. He knows us inside out. He knows us when we're sitting down. He knows us when we're rising up. He knows what we're thinking. He knows every word that you say. In fact, he knows what? Yeah, so every thought, every word that you're going to say before it's on your tongue. And the key verse in that section that talks about majesty is verse 6. And what would be the word there that would bring to your mind majesty?
Too wonderful.
Too wonderful, or lofty, too high for me. It's beyond my ability to capture, too exalted, too majestic for me or for us. So what do we learn from verses 7 to 12?
You can't escape his presence.
Okay, yeah, you can't get away from your Creator. Who learned that lesson? Probably the most famous person to learn that lesson in the Bible.
Jonah.
Yeah, well, a little chorus, that's really good. Yes, Jonah, you can't, there's no place you can hide, there's no place you can flee or flee from God. And so there's no dark corners, there's no secret places. Everything is plainly before him. We are all plainly before him. And for many people, that knowledge of God knowing us is a little uncomfortable. Yes, Terry?
I was going to say, for the faithful Christian, that's very comforting.
Yes.
But for someone who is not faithful or who has walked away from God, should be terrifying.
Right.
Because they're not walking away from him.
Right.
He's still there.
And yeah, you can't hide. But positively, what this tells me is that there's no place I can find myself, no circumstance that I can find myself, that he's not there. And so for people who don't want to get away from God, who long for his presence, or who may even be tempted to ask when things are going bad, where is God in all of this that's happening? What can you know? He's right there. He's never far away, yes.
Which is one of the reasons I love nature and being outside, because for people that say, like, I can't find God or whatever they're going through, all you have to do is walk outside.
Yeah.
And he's there. Whether it's the city, the mountains, your neighborhood, he is there. You just have to walk out the door.
Right. And so, again, I saw this sign when I was a teenager on a church reader board, and it said, "If God seems far away, who moved?" Because it wasn't him. If God seems far away, it's not because he's moved. He's still always been in the same place. Yes.
Asked about that one, on what the Sheol, or what the word meant, the grave.
For depths, and yes. So in
Verse 8, it's Sheol.
Okay.
And in depths, it's a different word.
Okay.
In verse 15.
Yes.
Okay, so they're different words.
Okay, thank you. And I should have known that. I should have known that Sheol would have been the one in verse 8, because it's the Greek Hades, Hebrew Sheol, or grave. Yes.
I think I remember the first time we looked at the earth from the moon, and I thought, so this is what God sees.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was beyond.
So you don't believe that was all taken from Arizona desert somewhere? Okay.
I think we're on the moon.
Okay. And let me just say this about the New King James and the King James use of hell there, because in that, especially in 1605 when the King James was written, hell meant hole, a place you couldn't see into. When you and I say hell, we think of what?
Fire.
Place of eternal punishment. But in that day and age, the word hell didn't mean that. That wasn't the meaning of that word. It meant a place beyond which you could see, which would be the grave, which would be the place of the dead, not necessarily a place of eternal punishment, which is why, through time, our language is a living language, and so, if I go to heaven, you're there. If I go to hell, you are there. Not in the hell that I'm thinking about. In fact, hell is exactly the opposite. It's the absence of God. So anyway, that's the only reason I brought that up. And then finally, verses 13 through 18, which is really the where I'm going to stop tonight. The rest is really good, but what do we learn about the majesty of God from verses 13 to 18? Yes, Roger.
The design that he uses to make us, in the inward parts, you knit me together in my mother's womb.
Okay.
I mean, that. Can't go to my head.
Okay. Cindy, did you have the same answer?
Well, no, I just put he's the creator of all, of everything. I mean, it's so intricate, there's no way you can put something together like that.
All right. Yeah. Well, and getting back to Roger's point, he's noticed since our conception, from the very moment, and knitting us together. Some of the words there have the idea of a ladder, which is exactly what a DNA molecule looks like, and that's pretty impressive as well. But all of your talents, all of the abilities, all the characteristics of your personality were given to you by God while you were being developed there, and from that standpoint, and kind of tying in with Cindy's, it's beyond our comprehension. But you think about that individual attention that God has given to each of us in the creation of each of us. What was in God's mind when he created me in the womb that is precious to me? What aspects of myself that I can look at and be appreciative? Now, it kind of takes me back to a conversation I had with Terry from Sunday's class, or was it Sunday night's class? Where the Pharisee is saying, I thank God that I'm not like this, or that. And what does that mean? Where he's like you or I saying, thank you, Lord, for making me so handsome. That's not the idea there. But God has given us abilities. He's given us talents. He's given us attributes and proclivities and personality that have led you to especially those of you who are adults, which is everybody that can understand me here, to be what you are today. And the ability that you have to serve God. And I like how he finished that up there, how vast the sum of them, of how precious your thoughts are to me, and how vast, in the end of verse 17, they are. Greater than the sands of the ocean, which is, hyperbole that just you can't even imagine how much that is. Too many to count. And so I think and we talked a little bit about this earlier on in our study about a transcendent God, that he's so high above us, he's so beyond our comprehension. And we'll talk about this towards the end of class. I think it's the last question, is the fact that you and I must never lose that awe. We must never let ourselves begin to take God for granted. Yes?
I was going to bring up, talking about majestic or majesty, Psalm 8 and verse 1. I have New King James, and it says, O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is, or majestic, is your name in all the earth, who have set your glory above the heavens.
Right.
He's so majestic that it's above the heavens.
Right.
Which is next level awe.
Right. And the heavens there would be the space that we see, and he's outside of creation. He's so one amazingly awesome. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's go over to Isaiah chapter 40. And same question, what does Isaiah say about the majesty of God? And so, what the psalm there did was to try to keep me from limiting my view of God. What Isaiah does, or what God does through Isaiah, is compare God with forces and things that we can see in nature and know that he's greater than that. And beyond what we can see. And so these are all forces that God created, obviously, and he's greater than that. And the point of all of what God said here through Isaiah, I think, is in verse 25. He also mentions it in verse 18. But verse 25 says, "To whom will you compare me? Who is my equal?" And in verse 18 basically says the same thing. "With whom then will you compare God? To what image will you liken him?" So we're gonna look at three different things here. I think three, maybe more than that. And the first thing I want to look at are his tasks, the things that he's done. And so what tasks do we see in Isaiah chapter 40, verses 12 and 13?
Measurement.
Okay, and what are we measuring?
The waters
What water?
in the hollow of his hand.
Okay, and what water? Because I can hold water in the hollow of my hand.
All
Yeah, all of the water. All of the water on the planet. All the rivers, lakes, streams, atmospheric water, oceans, salt water. And he holds that in the hollow of his hands. I don't know how many of you cook. I do a little bit. And so, it says if it says put in a teaspoon of salt, okay, I don't get my salt. I don't get the teaspoon out. I hold my hand like that and I pour a little salt in there till it looks like a teaspoon and I dump it in. Okay, so the hollow of your hand is used to hold things, to measure things. Okay, what's the next thing that we read about there?
Measure heaven,
Okay, with what?
a span.
A span, what's that? This is a span from here to here. A span of your hand. I also have that. When I go like this, from the tip of my thumb to the tip of my little finger is exactly 10 inches. Man, I'm glad that happened. It wouldn't help me if it was 9 3/4 or 10 1/2, but it's exactly 10. And so I can go like that, and I go like that, and I can measure things out by the span of my hand. Okay, Terry?
As someone who sews, you can basically count from your shoulder to the tip of your finger that it's a yard.
Yeah?
So when I'm needing to measure fabric,
Right.
the general.
Does it also do it like this? Robin does it from her nose. Okay? And so what is God measuring with the span of his hands?
The heavens.
The universe. The universe. And again, we use that to judge size. And like Will said, we're measuring things, but he's measuring the whole universe with the span of his hands. My translation has the, I might turn the page for me, the breadth of his hand. With the breadth of his hand, he marked off the heavens. What's the next thing?
The dust of the earth.
Dust of the earth is where?
measuring cup.
Is that what yours says?
That's what mine says. No,
It says a measuring cup
it says measure.
In a
and a measure. Okay. Okay.
In a basket.
Mine says basket. If you think of dust in a basket, what are you thinking? What have you been doing? You've been cleaning up. Sweep it up and sweep it into a basket. And so it's just the earth is just a basket of dust. That's what he cleans up. And then the next one,
Weighed the mountains in scales, and the hills in a balance.
okay. So mountains are used to balance, and the scales with the hills on it to balance. And again, you're measuring things. You're checking out how much something should weigh. I have a digital scale at the house, and I'll put my bowl on there, and I'll hit the tare so it comes up 0, and I can just measure my flour or whatever it is that I'm measuring, and have it exactly be right. But this is talking about this kind of a scale. And so here's the mountains that are in a scale. Here's the dust of the earth in a basket. He's got all of the waters of the earth in the hollow of his hand. And I'm just thinking today, okay, so how much is that? Let's just talk about the earth. And because you have Google, you can do this. You can say, what is the theoretical weight of the earth? Has anybody ever done that? And if you did, do you remember what it was? It's 13.1 septillion pounds is the theoretical weight of the earth. And that's 13.1 with 24 zeros behind it.
That's heavy, man.
It is heavy. It is heavy. And so what I take from that, just that opening verse there, that God treats the universe and the earth and the water and the dust and the mountains and the hills like a daily chore. Just as a person that's just working and cleaning things up and collecting things. And it's just so astounding when I can compare him to what I can see, to what I can experience. Any comments on that? So let's look at verses 13 and 14, and what does that tell us?
God's mind.
And what about it?
Who taught him?
Yeah.
Who can wrap their mind around that?
Who taught him the right way? Who taught him this knowledge or showed him the path of understanding? I can't remember what I was thinking about the other day. I don't know if it was the act of swallowing something. It had something to do with something I was doing. Probably swallowing because I do a lot of eating. But who taught God how to make that happen? How to know, okay, you chew your food and you swallow it, and then it goes down and it gets all digested and, gets sent to every place that it goes. How did he know that? How did he figure that out? And I can't fathom it, because he doesn't have a body. It's not like, well, I'll just make you just like mine, and here we go. And no, it was something more than that. Tim?
This is really weird. You just reminded me of a memory when I was a kid, laying down in the backseat of the car. You didn't have your seatbelt.
Right. I remember those days.
I think I was eating M&Ms and wondering, does my food need gravity? Do I need to stand up? Oh, weird.
Yeah. His wisdom and his knowledge are so far beyond our comprehension. So keep your fingers there, or ribbon there, and because you can't talk about this stuff without going over to Job. And so in Job, actually starting at chapter 38 and going through 41, because what's Job's complaint been?
That he's been wrongly apportioned this punishment.
Yeah, he's viewing what happened to him as punishment.
Yeah.
And because he's viewing it as punishment, he's saying this is not fair. It's not just. I'll plead my case. I'd like to just talk to God for just a few minutes and tell him where he's made a big mistake here. That's basically what it boils down to. And his three good friends were saying, Job, you're crazy. I've never seen anybody suffer like you. You have to be the worst sinner in the world. And so this argument is going back and forth. And so finally in chapter 38, the Lord is going to speak to Job out of the storm. And talks about, who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself. I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay? I'm going to ask you some questions, Mr. Know-it-all. Okay? And so he starts, and I'm just going to very quickly, he talks about the earth and its foundations and the stars. He talks about weather, and I don't know where Job lived. I don't know if he ever saw snow, except maybe on a mountaintop somewhere, or any of that. But God says, so where did that come from? Where does all this snow come from? In chapter 39, he talks about animals, and the instinct that they have, and they know when to give birth, and can you tame a wild ox? What about the ostrich? And I mean, he just has several things there. Horses. I love this whole section about horses and how they long to get into the fight, and they're the war horses. Then in chapter 40, you read about Behemoth, and feeds on grass like an ox, has a tail like a cedar. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron. And of course, most evolutionary-minded people, Christians who believe in evolution, think that, well, this is just a metaphor, or not a real animal. Couldn't be a dinosaur. Why?
They're dead.
Yeah, because dinosaurs and people didn't live together. Okay, that's their argument. And yet he talks about the fact that, what can you do with it? Can anyone capture it by the eye or trap it and pierce its nose? Well, there's obviously people there to do that. And then in chapter 41, he talks about Leviathan. And people say, well, that's a crocodile, or, it seems like it's bigger than a crocodile to me. Plus it's burnt, plus it has flames coming out of its mouth. Megan on her car has a license plate holder. It says, it doesn't matter that you don't believe in dragons. They don't believe in you either. And in fact, when we were at Noah's Ark, I got her a book on dragons, and the fact that I believe they probably really existed. They don't anymore, but there's a lot of animals that are extinct. But all of this stuff, and I mean, it's a fascinating reading if you want to take the time to go all the way through those chapters of Job. And all of that was done by God's wisdom. He created it all, made it all work together, all of the life cycles and the symbiotic relationships and all those things that exist there. The second thing that he talks about here in Isaiah, in verses 15 down through verse 24, are the nations. And if you think about, in the time of Isaiah, what were the great nations of the world at the time for him? Okay, you have Babylon, and before the Babylonians there were the Assyrians, and after the Babylonians there was the Medo-Persians, and then down in the south you still have a pretty powerful nation in the Egyptians. And so here's these massive nations, powerful nations that had empires, and what does God say about them here? They're like a drop in the bucket. Okay? They're regarded as dust on the scales.
Some of the same, you're talking about the water.
Yeah.
And
The dust of the earth being in, yeah. I worked as a meat cutter for years, and when I'm putting the meat on a piece of paper on the scale, I never had anybody say, "Hey, take the dust off there first." I mean, there wasn't any, but if there was dust on there, would it amount to anything? No. And that's what he's saying here. And when these people would think about those nations and what they have done to the nations around them and how powerful they were, and in fact, in Isaiah's case, and in the people of Isaiah's time, they're going to be knocking at their door. The Assyrians knocked at Judah's door. The Babylonians are going to make 3 different incursions in Judah. But to God, they're a drop in the bucket. And even if, as he goes on there, even if these nations decided to turn to God and start offering sacrifices, and they took all of the forests of Lebanon for their altar fires, and they took all of the animals and sacrificed them on those altar fires, God's still not going to turn his heart away from his people. It's not going to change that. Because they're worthless. They're less than nothing. And the reason they're less than nothing is because what had all of those nations placed their trust in? Pardon me?
Their own might.
Yeah, their own might and idols. They're idol gods. Yes, Tim?
So, I mean, I kind of had this as verses in the Bible talking about majesty, but since we're talking about nations, in First Chronicles where it says, "And the Lord made Solomon very great in sight, and bestowed on him such royal majesty."
Right.
So there's Solomon. And then another interesting one is in Daniel, where King Nebuchadnezzar says, "Is not this great Babylon, which I have built by my mighty power, as a royal residence and for the glory of my majesty?"
Right.
And of course, he was answered in Daniel 5, one of the verses says, Daniel speaking says, "O King, the Most High God," oh, he's talking to his son, "the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father kingship and greatness and glory and majesty."
Right.
So Nebuchadnezzar thought it was my
Right.
doing.
Well, and in that story, when he said that, what did God do?
The handwriting on the wall.
No. To Nebuchadnezzar, that's to the son.
He ate grass.
He took the kingdom away. And his hair grew like feathers and his nails like claws, and he's eating grass like a cow. And what do you call people that do that? Where do we put people that do that? We put them in an asylum. But what did God do with Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom? He saved it for him and granted it back to him when he realized God's majesty. Yes?
That's right. What was cool is that next verse after what I read, where it says, "While the words were still on his lips, a voice from heaven came
Right.
and said, 'This is what is decreed. Your royal authority has been taken from you,'"
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Your majesty is gone.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for tonight, but we're going to keep on with the nations, and I want you to think about the powers of today. Who are because he's going to be talking about princes and kings and things, so I want you to think about who that is today, and we'll put that into this equation here. So next week, are we going to be is that October 1st?
30th.
October 1st is next Wednesday. Okay. 10-1. 10-1. All right. Thank you very much.